did about him getting fired from the Howard Stern job at K-Rock. That was sort of interesting. But one thing, a little bit of a semi-math in here, he's talking about he was fired for playing too much ethnic music, which is true. They didn't like the ethnic music he was playing, and he would play music while talking over it, which is a little bizarre. Whatever, it's his own style. However, he said his ratings were going up when they fired him. That I don't understand. I never heard of that, but he also said that they really wanted him to be like another Howard Stern clone, and they wanted him to play Nickelback and Lynyrd Skynyrd, and this is a rock and roll station. And he said, I'm playing the music that rock and rollers listen to on vacation, like Kool and the Gang and Bob Marley, and, you know, his stuff is all over the place. And then he said this quote, "You either love Roth or you hate him. You're either entertained or you have no taste for me." So I gotta give him a little credit there, because that is pretty accurate, don't you think?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail right on the head. A little bit egotistical, but that's Dave.
Well, that's Dave too, but he also
right.
That's Dave too as well.
But that's true. Like, I don't know too many people are like, yeah, I'll listen to him. It's on. It's like you are either going to listen to him for the full 3 hours, or you'll be like, next, I'm going to listen to Dave, and they're going to give me the highlights. I can't sit through that.
Yeah, and he also said that he was not controllable, and that he was not afraid to upset people, and that he got in a fight with the mayor's office about all kinds of political stuff he was talking about on the air, and having cops come on the air, and that was a little crazy, and so that was a little weird. Then he also said that when he was talking to Alex, and he says they had a list of 120 songs that the band could play at the drop of a hat. So that was kind of cool. He said everything went from Smoke on the Water to Get Down Tonight. And one thing he said, which I thought was absolutely beautiful, was he really gave credit to Michael Anthony. He said Michael Anthony was unique. His bass playing, sure, we could find bass players, but nobody could sound like Michael Anthony vocally. He says he's Garfunkel. He says Simon's good, but Simon and Garfunkel. And then he was likening him to Garfunkel, meaning like he's adding that extra sauce in the background that really made everything gel. And he says, when Michael and Anthony and I sing, you recognize it like Hendrix guitar. It's a signature sound that comes from thousands of hours. So
that's funny because Sammy says the same thing.
Well, I have to say, let me tell you something. Sammy and Mike sound absolutely amazing together. I'm going to bring this up a little later when we talk about something else, but I cannot blame Mike for going with Sam and doing what he does with Sam, because I think those guys are great together. As far as I'm concerned, that's the sound of Van Hagar right there. Anyway, he says every time he sings, he was taught by this guy, Kurt Blumenthal, this guy who was a performer in Auschwitz back in the day, and he said, every time you sing, Mr. Roth, you sing like your life depends on it. And he says, every time I sing like my life depends on it. And he says, it's in the music, it's in my voice. That was really cool, and I thought he had a really nice interview there. What did he say about the album, Dave? Do you remember what he said?
Not specifically about that, but he had said he doesn't see the need to release new albums, full-length albums.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, man, well, I'm not holding my breath now for the California sessions to be released as a whole album.
I know. But, like, what is he going to do? Drop a song every 8 months? I mean, that's insane.
I think that's what he's going to do. I think that's exactly what he's going to do.
Well, then we'll have the entire album when you and I are 60 years old.
Well, right. But I think that's what he wants to do. Another song drops. Maybe he'll get some press write-up or something like that. That's where his mind is.
I guess so.
So he goes out of his way to meet Joe in person, right?
Yeah.
In Texas.
Yeah.
Could he have dressed for the part? Because he's in his painting gear.
You know, Dave, listen, I think he's trying to present an image. Not only that, but Joe said, it's hot as hell down here.
And I saw that because Joe's in a T-shirt.
Yeah.
And Dave is in winter gear.
Dave is not only, he's in a hoodie and a jumpsuit. I mean, it was crazy.
I know.
And it was filled with paint.
But that's the thing.
I know.
It's like, you're going to be on a podcast. You're wearing the same stuff you've been wearing for months painting at home. I know he's quirky and this is the image, but come on, man, really? And by the way, I know he said he was high. I'll be honest with you. If he hadn't said that, I don't think I would have noticed the difference.
No, Dave, look, let me say that.
Interview.
Let me say, Keith Richards is clean right now. He doesn't do any drugs. He's still high. Do you understand? Like, I think those guys have had so much stuff in their system that it's almost like they're just perpetually high. I don't even know how they could get high after doing all that they've done. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like how do you even get, like, it's just, there's so much baked into the system. I mean, you know.
Well, especially with Keith, it's like, dude, like, how do you, how much do you have to have before you feel anything?
Exactly. So, moving on, the Sunset Sound podcast, which is, I guess it's also more like a video cast, had Apollonia on. Apollonia, who is the beautiful singer that Prince discovered in Purple Rain, plays his girlfriend in that movie. Apollonia, as we have noted before in this podcast, was dating David Lee Roth while filming Purple Rain. And David Lee Roth sent flowers to her during the filming at her hotel, and Prince made sure she didn't get the flowers. He didn't want her to be seen with anybody else. She said that Prince said, I don't want you to be seen with anybody else, that he wanted to be the one to discover me. She said once she was at Prince's house and she was sick and she was staying over, and she said, and Prince got up on the piano and said, who's this? And he leapt from the piano and touched his toes, and the eagle split and yelled, and he was imitating David Lee Roth. And she said he never did splits before that moment, and since that time he continued to add them to his shows. So she thought he was influenced by Dave. And she said, I knew when Dave was out on the road, he belonged to the world, because they said they were dating, but it was sort of like a casual thing. They would, like, hook up from time to time. And she said when we saw each other, it was fun. They went to, like, award shows together. They'd go home together. And she said she met Ed and all the other guys in the band. She said they were all wonderful. And she said that one thing was kind of cool, that she noted that in Dave's house, he has a room where he writes lyrics on the walls. And he used to call her Sugar. That was his nickname for her. So, interesting. What do you think of that?
Very interesting. It just, more and more Prince strikes me as a controlling kind of guy.
Oh, God, absolutely. Absolutely,
yeah.
Well, moving on to Wolf. Oh, my God. So there is so much going on, because Wolf released his album. So he's doing press galore. And I have all these different press clippings. So what I did was, there's so many of these interviews are so similar. So I just took chunks that were more different and interesting. So when Wolf was on Eddie Trunk, he said it was a relief to finally have the album out. He said he's very confident in what he made. He feels it's a great album, but it's not a VH album. And my God, I have to be honest with you, I'm so sick of hearing about this is not a VH album. It's not going to sound like Van Halen. I don't know why anybody would think it would sound like Van Halen or be a Van Halen album, because his last name is Van Halen. This I don't understand. I mean, he doesn't sound anything like Van Halen. He's not even close to that style of music. It's kind of silly. But he said, this is not something to get your VH fix with. I think he gets his back up with the Van Halen fans a little bit, so I think he's got to relax a little bit and just be himself. I mean, if I played and sang like that, I would be like, dude, just throw down. Interesting enough, the first song he wrote for the album was Mammoth. He said he wrote it in 2013. It was the first idea he had to start the project. And his last idea was Circles. So that was kind of cool. He said he always had an affinity for the name Mammoth, that it stuck with him, obviously, when his dad told him about, Mammoth from back in the day. He said Mr. Ed was a demo title for the song Mr. Ed, and he said he did the harmonic tapping on the solo, so he named it after Eddie, though the song is not about Eddie. Epiphany is another demo title. It really didn't have anything to do with the song. Horribly Right. He said he was on a 2-week break from the 2015 Van Halen tour, and he wrote this song holed up in his hotel room in New York. He also wrote Resolve in New York, in Buffalo, in his hotel room, so that was kind of cool. He was messing around with a capo and came up with that track. One thing that Eddie Trunk noted, that this was the one album that his wife liked. He says, most of the time my wife doesn't like anything that I bring home or play. Wolf said everybody has a different favorite song, and he takes that as a good sign, because it does have that sort of openness to the album that a lot of different people can like this album. I mean, a Van Halen album is a Van Halen album, right? So, like, you have Van Halen fans, hard rock fans, whatever. But I think there could be a lot of other style of music fans that could like Wolf's music, so that's kind of cool. Talked about the song Stone, which is the closer of the album. He said it's epic, it's longer, and it's fun to mess with. He said it's a dynamic song, and he had sort of a Nine Inch Nails, Black Sabbath, sludgy thing going on. He said he had a really good time with that song. And in terms of his voice, he says it was Elvis Bisquet who gave him the confidence to really sing. And he said first song they tried was Resolve, and they also did Distance in the Big Picture. And by the time he got those three down, he started to gain confidence, and Elvis really saw it before he did. He really had that. And he said obviously his first instrument was the drums, and the bass was the last instrument he learned, but he says he does other stuff way better than playing bass. He also talked about playing drums by age 10, and Ed got him a kit, started playing guitar by the age of 12 because he wanted to learn 3/16 for his 6th grade talent show. And Ed taught him some power chords, but he really just looked up the tabs for most songs that he wanted to learn. He never took a lesson on anything, which is insane. And he also said that the first thing he ever wrote in his life was when he was 6 years old. He wrote a jingle on the piano, which is unbelievable. He says he's excited to stand behind his own album. He's really crazy about that. Oh, he also said that Eddie had the whole album in his phone, plus 8 other songs, which were scratch demos, that he was the only one who had them. So Eddie not only heard this album, but he also heard 8 other songs, of which Wolf is going to get back to for his second album. And he said he just wanted to hear it and be part of it. He was more of a proud dad watching his kid play soccer. He really wasn't involved in the actual making of this and that. The photo from inside the album that we talk about later on is from 2012 Esquire magazine. He said it was his favorite picture of them. Talked about correlating it with the way the Van Halen band, Alex and Eddie, did when their father, Jan Van Halen, passed away. And obviously he passed away before Wolfgang was born, so he didn't even know his grandfather, but he kind of correlated with that. He says his mom couldn't be prouder. In terms of the cover, he says that the big crab represented like a mammoth animal, kind of disrupting real life. And John Brosio is the artist, and he's a big fan of it. Apparently the painting is called Fatigue 2, and he owns the rights to the painting. So that's interesting.
Wolf does?
Yep.
Wolf owns the rights?
He said that. So he must have bought the rights to use it, whatever. Yeah, so that's interesting. He says he has new ideas down in terms of demos, and he'll get into the studio at some point, and he's excited because he said the next album will come faster for sure. But he's having such a good time doing everything himself. He wants to do that again. And he said he's going to play everything live on stage. There's going to be no tracks used whatsoever. And he will only play original material from the album. And he says he also has 2 other songs in the can in case they play an extra long set somewhere. He's got 2 newer songs that no one's heard that he might throw out there on tour. He keeps pounding away at this is not Van Halen, this is not Van Halen, this is not Van Halen. He says, cancel your tickets. It's not happening. I want to stand on my own 2 feet. And when asked if he was going to play any Van Halen songs.
And that is the theme of every interview he does.
Oh, my God.
Every article he does.
Oh.
And I get it. I mean, he's trying to get the word out.
I get it, but it's like a little pounding. None of his songs sound anything like Van Halen. I mean, it's like the vocals, the guitar, it's just crazy. He's going to be opening up on Guns N' Roses tour, and he says that he knows Slash and he knows Duff, and he's prepared to do about 30 to 45 minutes. He's excited for that. When asked about a tribute show for Eddie, he said it would be a great thing to do. I think it should happen, but not in the immediate future. He says there's a lot of moving parts to something like that. I personally don't think that's going to happen. And then when he's talking about putting all the Van Halen members together, he says, I have no idea. All I know is the focus should be on pop, and it's a tall ask. So who knows? When asked about the vault, he says that's going to take forever. You have to bake the tapes. He said it's kind of a strange thing to go through. It's and emotional, but he said really all the good stuff came out, and that would be what his father would tell you.
You'll get nothing like it.
In terms of the Grammys, he said he's over it. He said it's a waste of energy, but he spoke to Harvey Mason Jr. about future rock representation, and he says that he's excited about the launch of the album, and he's gearing up for the GNR tour, and he's going to, play some festivals as well. But I don't know. So, like I said, he's going to open for Guns N' Roses. Now, this is the weird part, Dave. So I'm going to the show, the third date. He's playing 25 shows opening for Guns N' Roses on stadium shows. I mean, can you imagine the first tour you're playing stadiums? It's unbelievable. So
that's a sweet gig for him.
I know. So he's opening up for Guns.